But
Yeah.
all right, back to Bedford. So we grew up in Bedford, diverse city. Man, it's all I've ever known, and I look at the world today, and I don't understand it, because I don't understand it. I understand a world where you and I can have a podcast and talk like it doesn't matter. We don't look at each other any other way than two guys talking like I would anywhere else. And I
Hmm.
don't know if I was raised that way, or if I was raised in a culture that was that way, or a time that was that way. I can't answer that question, but um, what do you think? Because we were raised in the same place. What do you see today, and what do you think?
Raised in the same way, but a different experience.
True that.
um,
True.
we were like what, 60-40 white black. I think our class particularly, I think, was like 60-40, or yeah, you know,
Right.
55-45 or something like that. But we still more, Bedford at that particular time was still more white than black. um, and there was a division there. You had a middle ground, which like kind of you were part of and other people were kind of part of. But just like everything else, we had a little bit more middle than extreme. I think now we have more extreme than middle.
Hmm.
But it was there. It was there sometimes, not as much as what we saw in children. Oh, but their parents, totally different. um, we I never forget. I mean, we had somebody move out on our street because they felt that there was too many black folks on our street now, out in Bedford. Um, School back in the 80s, it was, you know, who didn't like Prince? Who didn't like Michael Jackson? I mean,
That's
they
right.
were, you see what I'm saying? But then there was the hip hop was still kind of coming of age at that particular time. Then you had the heavy metal rockers over there, the Metallica and the Guns N' Roses and so forth over there. But you still had that angst for white and black. Um, it just it may just not have been as prevalent to you, um, because you had that big middle ground.
Yeah.
And if you're not in that process of thinking that way or was raised that way, it doesn't really it doesn't really connect. But even like me being, I always call myself that I wasn't a popular when I was like the 1A. If nobody popular was in class, they'd talk to me. But if somebody was, then I was like back in the back or something. But I was, still sort of in the middle. But you can see, being a person of color, actually seeing all that was coming around you, maybe not understanding at the time. But yeah, there was divisiveness. You know, there was some craziness.
Yeah.
But what makes it worse is now we're, in our, you know, 20s, like twice, but or something. We're half century old now,
Yeah.
and the people that we went to school with, I've had to unfriend, unlock, the delete, or whatever, because the visualness of what has happened since 2016, when former President Barack Obama was, not 16, I was 08. I'm sorry. When all that started back in 08, the venom, the hatred, the vitriol, I'm like, is that how you thought about me back then? I thought we was cool. For you to be
Yeah.
that way meant that you didn't give a sugar honey iced tea about me this way. Um, so current events leading out from here have really, I guess everybody just wants to be transparent, whether that's good or bad. I mean, but we weren't bad. We had issues, yes.
Yeah.
Did we not get along? Of course we got along, especially in doing some sports. I mean, band, we was cool. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we were good folks mostly all the way around. But did we have to encounter that? Some of us more than others? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When we would go to the mall, Randall Park Mall, um, here again, sometimes it was the kids, little snide-nosed kids, and or the parents, when we were hanging around, the way they look, the way they put, we, as little people, young people, teenagers, we noticed that stuff. So why are you pulling your child closer to you when you walking past us? We just down here chilling. What's your problem?
Right.
You know, I remember, I don't know if you know Rob Greider, me, him, Lamar Dillingham, a couple others one day. We were walking towards the pool, shorts on. We're in high school. We got all we got on is a towel and our swim trunks because we going swimming. And the police come because somebody said that we was a bunch of, boys out there making a lot of noise around the houses, like a little gang or something. So we get rolled on, and I'm like, we, I'm like, I don't want to go to jail. What's wrong? You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they was like, well, they said something about some kids doing something. Man, we going to swimming. I mean, what are we doing? We going swimming. Now,
Yeah.
could we have been loud? We're teenagers, man. I mean, come on.
Right. Right.
I mean, we're outside walking in the street.
Well,
So yeah,
and this is probably a loaded question that could probably lead to an entirely another podcast. But I don't remember the quote, and I wish I really could off the top of my head. There's nothing on the top of my head in case you haven't noticed. But it's clean. No, I there's a quote, and I don't remember what it was, but it's powerful, and that is, and I really believe that even of myself in the '80s, we wanted to be. You mentioned it. We loved Prince. We all wanted to be Michael Jackson. We love the culture of hip hop and pop and all that, but I don't know that I understood the depth of what you just said. When I went to the pool, I went to the pool. I didn't ever get stopped because of the color of my skin. But so I don't know, and I'm just making this up as I go. It's unscripted and I'm on the fly, but I think that's where some disconnect is even today's kids, man, they love Kanye. They love Drake. They love right? But you know what I mean? They love the
yeah,
culture. They love the music. They love the styles. They love the clothes, the shoes, the gear. But I don't know that any of us understand just because I listen to My Mind is Playing Tricks on Me by the Ghetto Boys. I can't understand what they were talking about, or Public Enemy
mhm.
for that matter. We both love Public Enemy. I can't listen to PE. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back, and claim that I understand what it's like to live in that world. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think so many times
Absolutely.
I think we as a white man, I think I've listened to that and feel like I have some kind of understanding when I don't understand that. I don't worry about being pulled over. I don't worry about going to the pool, swimming with my friends. And is it fair for us to say that is a massive disconnect?
It is, and I got fired from the pool once when I worked at the pool because somebody said they thought they saw me smoking weed. Ain't never smoked a joint in my life up to that point, and still not to this day either.
Wait, there was an up till that point. So
I,
go
I, had
ahead.
to, I had to change. I had to change that and clarify. There's still. I have not had the weed.
It's all good. It's all good. It was medical
But
purpose.
yeah, and it was some parent who they never. I mean, my father was ballistic, and I went that next day to get a drug test to get my job back. I remember my pastor saying, "You should have sued those people." I mean, because they took the word of somebody who was of a lighter hue than me. And all I do that summer, y'all kids, stay in schools, especially the kids that look like me. Y'all don't need to be doing this. And people knew that. Y'all don't need to be doing this drug stuff. Y'all don't blah, blah, blah. And now you gonna say, y'all caught me down the maintenance room smoking some weed with some other. Now the other dude smoked weed. But I was never around him when we did it, or whatever. That's at his own personal time. So yeah, they let me go. Got the job back though, because once I brought up there with that test, my father it said some nice things, but and this is where, and of course, no offense to anyone, but this is where people get offended when that disconnect is the privilege of being white. And people, oh no, white people, I know white privilege. I've worked, I did, my parents. That's not the type of privilege we're talking about. What you experience is a privilege that I don't have.
Right.
You don't have to worry about, like you said, when you get pulled over by police. I mean, I hear stories, from people in Bedford and the older people that I've grown up with. Yeah, I threw that ticket in his face. Can you imagine me throwing a ticket? We would not be having this conversation
Yeah.
if I threw a ticket in a cop's face.
Yeah.
Just the things, because you are of a different hue and there's a different mindset about who we are as people of color. That is a privilege we don't have. That is not to say that you ain't worked for what you got, that you ain't had it hard, that things haven't been rough for you. But if we go down the line, if you and I, and we have a 750 credit score, and we both go in the bank, I guarantee your interest rate will be lower than mine.
Mm.
It will. And that's how it's always been. And then, from the redlining, from all of that, from Jim Crow, there's been systematically things put in place to make things more difficult than for you. So, you can go to any Black family in our day. You got to study. You got to be the best. You got to do this. You got to do that. Well, why? Why can't this is hard. Why do I got to be the best? Which unfortunately I wasn't. But why do I have to be the best? Because our best is still worse than your mediocre
Mm.
when it comes to opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's the antithesis of the privilege. It's not that nobody didn't work to get what they get and all this kind of stuff. It's the things that, like you said, you don't understand. There's the disconnect. That disconnect is that privilege that you didn't ask to have, but you do. I didn't ask to have, but it is. And that's the kind of society that we live in. And unfortunately, in today's society, it has, I don't know what it was like. We were born in the late 60s. I don't know what it was like back then during the civil rights. But this is as tense as I've ever felt it. I wrote a Facebook post a couple of days ago. I was like, after all this stuff, 2020. But anyway, everything
Right.
that's been going on.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And then after, I didn't watch it. I just seen the highlights because I thought it turned out to what I thought it was going to be. But the presidential debate, um, the scripture comes to mind: "Put no trust in man," basically, but in the Lord, trust in the Lord in all your heart. And I said that scripture, Psalms, I think it's 118 and 18 and 8, 118 and 8. It is so alive for me now, because my faith in humanity is at an all-time low. And then I realized I'm gonna have to protect my family at any cost. And or as Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. But because it's dark. There are things that we still move on and kind of navigate through. But since 2008, it has been deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And these last 4 years, 4 to 6 years have just exploded. We would always say, when we hear people talk about different things regarding us, that's the dog whistle right there. They're saying something without saying, you know. Now, and no more dog whistles. They
No.
just
Yeah,
and
I
and
think of when I watched the presidential debate, and I'll say this because I think it applies to both. I think of the coach, Dennis Green. I think he was with the Vikings when he said it, but at that post game when he said they are who we thought they were.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so I watched the debates and I said, they are who we thought they were. And take with that what you want. I'm not making a political statement. I don't, whatever. They are who we,
Duly noted. Yeah.
but I go back to, I say that because forget the politics. I don't want to get into it. But I say that because when I looked at Facebook and saw the same friends that you mentioned back when we started this conversation, my thought was they are who we thought they were. What this has done is brought a spotlight to what people thought, what most of us knew. Now we don't have to question anymore where you stand when it comes to this thing. And you know what, man, and let me say this. I pray to God that if anybody sees anything I say, I hope I'm not coming off anything more than what I do believe, and that is you and I've never seen each other any other way than just us
And
talking.
brothers.
We're brothers.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean I'm perfect, man. I live in this, but I let me take one other step too. You said, here's where I think I get tripped up. I see white privilege. I hear the word white privilege, and I'm not that bright, you know that. So my first thought is, that means I have a silver spoon in my mouth. Well, I grew up in Bedford too. I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. Not to sound like New Jack City, Miss Hawkins. No, but
Ms. Hawkins.
I didn't have a silver spoon. My parents worked really, really hard, and they
Mhm.
taught me to work really, really hard. I'm not privileged, but that word, when you just explained it, man, I see that differently now. I understand that differently now. I am privileged. I'm absolutely blessed in many ways. I would even go so far as to say, because I haven't had to walk in those shoes that you have, even though we grew up in the same town. Um, I don't know if so. Maybe privilege isn't the right word for me because I'm not that bright. Maybe
Well, I
privilege
don't think
is the right
it's I
word,
don't
but
think it's
that's
the right word. I don't think it's the right word in general.
right.
Um, but it's like Black Lives Matter. Uh, somebody's going to come and say all lives matter. Yeah, we know it does, but we know the parable of Christ and the shepherd as a sheep. She takes over the flock, but when that one goes astray, that flock is not right. He has to still go get that one sheep, and he leaves the flock, gets the sheep, so everybody can be whole. That's all we're saying. That's all that people are saying. Um, so it's not about somebody's life is more important than others, but when you have an issue with one sector of it, let's just fix it
Yeah,
so we can all be whole. So anything that someone says when it's always a counteract somewhere. Black lives matter. No, all lives matter. Well, if we change the word from privilege, it's going to be something. You know what I'm saying? It'll be something. It'll be something else. Um, well, we think that there's too much, violence from cops to unarmed black people. Well, what about black on black crime? It's always a rebuttal.
right.
Let's just deal with it. And black on black crime is crime. It's no different. You got white crime, that's crime. So why isn't that white on white crime? It's crime. People get crime and they do the time. But here again, this is where that privilege comes in and systematically to where it's not geared to help lower income and or people of color. And what trips me out is that um, white people that are lower income don't get that some of the rules that are against us are against them as well. It's against them as well. So sometimes they go against their own interests in some things. Um, but it's a bigger class issue, and there's a color issue, and the color thing is just a construct. I mean, was it around since what? I think the early 50s, 60s. Just because to block people in different things, dude. We all human.
Mhm.
I believe red. You probably believe blue, but
Carolina blue, baby.
but we're all God's children, built the same way. We have different experiences, and our experience in America is just different from any other person that have come here. We are the only group of people of color, that were brought here. And that separates everything. We're not immigrants, as some Texas books say. We are immigrants looking for work. No, we weren't immigrants looking for work, and no, we weren't happy just because we were singing songs. We were taken from one place and brought to another. And here's the thing: with me today is America is a great country. It could be so much better. How? By inclusiveness. I
Mhm.
swear, man, if we were just all equal, we would be Wakanda in this place.
Mhm.
I swear. Because there have been so many lives that have been cut short. There are so many ideas that are in the grave because somebody thought they were better than you because of what they look like.
Yeah.
There's so much potential that was lost because of we wanted to be better than you or control you or do this. So our experience is different from anybody else that came over on any other boat, with $2 in their hand and build it, whatever. No, 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 no. That's totally different. And because of how we came here and what we did here is the only reason our country is as prosperous as it was so fast. So and we're here. We live here, we work here, we do here, we do here. You know, ain't nobody going back nowhere. Because most of us, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the point is, you know, you have to deal with family hurts. You have to deal with those things that nobody talks about. You can't just wash them away. How are you ever going to learn from that? How are you just going to say this never happened? Oh, I beat you up 2000. I beat you up last year. Oh, I'm sorry. You got to forget that. Oh, but this scar and this handy, you know, now I got a broken arm and I can't do what I used to could do because of that. But I'm not going to forget it. My life is forever changed.
Right.
There needs to be and this is, I think this is where it's hard for the rubber meet the road, in my opinion. And of course, all these views are not maybe established by Aaron Conrad and the 101 podcast, but you know, um, where the rubber does not meet the road is that if people really say and admit, oh, well, yeah, that's messed up, man. You know, we did, that was wrong. And no, I can't make up for what my ancestors did. I work hard, but yeah, that was pretty messed up. How do we deal with this? Now they're accountable. Who wants to be accountable?
Right.
And that's the problem. Because now if you know, if you recognize it, you know, oh, there's no systematic racism. Oh, y'all need to forget about that. That was, you know, 400 years ago. So 400 years from now, can we tell you, and I'm just saying this in conversation, say, can we tell you to forget 9/11?
Mm.
They're going I mean, I bet you somebody now just turned me off. They just, sorry, I hope I didn't lose a subscriber from you. But I'm just using that in context. I don't want to forget nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
This is just for conversational purposes. So how that may sting somebody, if I were to say that with them in all seriousness, still reverberate to this day, because we have everlasting PSD from 400 years of being here working outside, I mean, outside of our own will. And then the things that were taught during that time, all those things, it takes time to get that stuff out. We're still living through that. That's why we're not a monolith. That's why you got people that think this way, Black culture. That's why you got people that think that way. You got fighting amongst yourselves, just like anybody else. But there are ways that were imparted into us that have been detrimental to the growth of the Black community, the people of color, because of slavery. And then when you get out of slavery, then there was Reconstruction, and you go to Jim Crow. And, I mean, redlining. It's just been one thing after the other. So we were just about to be born some years later when Black people really got the right to vote. That's in our span of a generation. And that ain't been that long ago. The civil rights movement, man, it was
Yeah.
that wasn't that long ago. 50 years or so. That's a person's life. So are we supposed to like be all right now because we had a Black president or so, a person of color as president? I guess not, because that was really wrong. That was the wrong thing to do. It seemed like, because now everything is. That's when I really saw, for me personally, when I really saw, people, whether you're Democratic or Republican, people always do their things. It didn't matter. When it was Bill Clinton and George Bush, they went back. You know what I'm saying? They did their thing. Blah 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 blah. But the visceral and the venom that was thrown starting in 2008 was totally different. It was vicious. It was vicious, and that has just exploded up to this point today.
And,
So,
and it continues to this day.
yeah.
And I'm not making a political statement. You can say what you want about the president, and clearly people do. But I agree with you. And I was on with, not that I'm pumping my own podcast, but I was on with a guy that was in country music during the Dixie. He actually opened for the Dixie Chicks. And I pointed out, and I've brought this up so many times because I'm still blown away by it. The Dixie Chicks were ruined as a career. They'll never be the same because they said we're embarrassed of our president because he's from Texas. In London, not in the United States. They were in
London. I remember that.
And they said we're embarrassed of the president because he's from Texas. and they were destroyed. Can you imagine? That's a punchline nowadays. Like that's
Absolutely.
nothing. It's nothing. And as you said, it started in 2008, and we could, and I don't want to cut it off at all. I hate to do that because we could talk all night, and I think that therein lies our best days, is when we can talk all night. And I can
Yeah.
hear that when you say the word white privilege, it means this and not a silver spoon in my mouth.
Hmm.
I can hear that, um, you know, all the things you've said. I can hear those, and I can hear that you said, you may lose some subscribers. Somebody just logged off. I don't care, because I'm not doing this so people, I have a big subscription, that's not why I do this. I do this because I want to know your story. I want to understand how we get to better days. Because if we can't get this right, we're not going to have better days. And my kids deserve them. And your kids,
Absolutely.
I mean, we deserve to hand this thing off to the next generation in better way than we found it. And we're not doing it because we're too busy fighting.
No. Yeah.
So, that's where my head is. And it's my podcast, and I'll rant if I want to. Now, I just lost the
Yeah.
other half of the people that were listening, but no, I mean, I mean that, Darren, we need to have more conversations. And I hate that we're going to cut it off, because I want to have another one. I want to do this again, and I want to start here and pick it up and then keep this conversation going, because maybe there's someone that's listening that was driving in their car or on a run or on a walk or watching it on YouTube, wherever they may find this media, and go, wow, I didn't think about that, and pause for just a minute to say, I got to be better. I got to do better. It doesn't matter what color that may be, who that is. They think, you know what, I got to listen better. I got to let my voice be heard better. I don't know. That's where I'm at. I think that we're not going to get anywhere until we do that. And I just want to see better days.
I always, when things like this happen, when uh, people of color, men of color get dumbed down, you know, by police or vigilantes or whatever, and something, I always like, people go crazy. It's always seen as somebody should have never done, or this or that or whatever, and people just go attack the person that was killed. I had a friend of mine tell me when George Floyd died, in that situation, was killed, murdered. um, I used to say killed, but he was murdered. Um, well, we're not sure that he died like that. First of all, aren't you just even upset that somebody who has power use that power to be abusive to somebody else? Anyway, let's just take out everything else.
Yeah.
You're not disturbed by that. So my question is, why aren't you disturbed by that?
Yeah.
Why? So a quick story. Now, you know me, obviously up to my high school years, we've communicated throughout our adult life. When my car's, what was it, my battery? No, it was my alternator or something went down. Me and my wife trying to have some fun in Columbus. Car went down. Hey, Aaron, you and your
Welcome
wife took
guest.
me. Tell her I'm on the way. Tell her, give me a kiss for me. Tell her I said hello.
Welcome guest, man.
Yeah, you invited me in, and we have that type of relationship. We don't have to talk. We can not talk from now on 5 years, but I know in my heart, if I needed something, or it was something that I knew that I would have no hesitation to call, and vice versa, and we could do it for each other. And that's just how it is. So you would say I'm a nice guy, right? Pretty laid back.
Sure.
All right. So quick story. I had just got my CCW. This is about 5 years ago. Just got my CCW. I used to drive my pastor. I would go pick him up, drive him to church, right? So he lived out in Aurora at the time. This was a Sunday morning. Me and Teresa got into it for whatever reason. Not like, fussy. I mean, it was just fussy. She got on my nerves. I got on her nerves. Leaving the house, driving down the highway. So that rolled over because I guess my pastor had a bad morning. So we had a bad morning. I'm like, you know what? So he got in his car. I got in my car. And we were just hopefully going to make it to church and just make a better day, right? I can't remember why, but we driving down. Next thing here, I'm like, and I'm in Sola at this point.
Oh,
Yeah. So I get pulled over. I know since I have my CCW, put those hands up on the wheel, have them on the wheel, don't touch nothing, come out, you tell them that you have a CCW. But I forgot, and all that was going on, it was a perfect storm that morning. I was flustered, I was frustrated, everything. And where I was carrying my firearm, it felt more like my wallet than my firearm. So I had really just do all that. Okay, I don't have my, I don't have my gun on me. Okay, so I lean back in the car because I'm like this. So I lean back and I'm like, oh. So he goes, gets to whatever, writes the ticket, and so this time my hands are out the window. Before he gets, I had a '96 Ford Explorer at the time, and I'm like, sir, this is before he gets to, they're not long, but they're longer than the car. You know what I'm saying? An Explorer. Before he even gets to the back of the trunk, I'm like, sir, I apologize. I didn't tell you correctly. It's been a bad day. I do have my firearm with me. Not even 3 seconds, he runs up to the car right in my face. Get out the car. Get out the even of the car. I'm like, my hands are still in. I'm like, sir, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I've just had a bad day. I forgot to tell you. I just want to tell you before you came back, before you came up here. He went ballistic on me. He pulled me out the car. And at that point, I'm like, F it. I'm starting to talk back because my day had just exploded. It was, it just was what it was. Mm-hmm. So by that time, some other people came, people calm down, calm down. How you gonna tell me to calm down? This man that put the gun in my face, he's shaking, got the gun in my face, could have killed me. I could have been a hashtag, and all the people would know of me is that he resisted. Or he didn't tell the cop that he had a gun. So he may have wanted to shoot him. My name would never be what my name should be if that would have happened. You think I got an apology?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. Got charged and everything over a mistake. Now, he could have had a bad day too.
Yeah.
But I always say that story to tell people we never know. I know cops never know what they're going into. We never know what the cops have gone through. But there has to be something to buffer that.
Yeah.
I just thank God that guy didn't have a happy trigger finger, or you and I would not have had this conversation. And at that time, there were no hashtags, so I just would have been somebody, and they would have said here again that he resisted, or it would have been made, it would have made me look like I was doing something egregious, which, I forgot to tell the man something, and I gave the man particular distance and stance and no threat whatsoever, to do what I needed to do. But that still happened. But now those opportunities end differently, which is unfortunate. And that's what I'm afraid of. I got a boy. Right. I'm afraid of my godsons. I got one, that you remember, he's 10 now, and he's rambunctious. He's 10. I got a 27-year-old who's trying to, raise his family. But he still like to do some street stuff, not negative, just go to party or do this, do that. And it scares me. Mm. It scares me because because it's not in our current situation is not in their best interest.
Yeah.
Not in their best interest.
Yeah. Well, man, we could do this all night. And I think there's a lot more stories that you can tell than I can, which is the point, right? Isn't that the point? We got a lot to learn, and
just be willing. That's all. From my perspective, to anybody I talk to, and I always like I said, when things come out, I invite people. If you want to talk, let's talk. I consider myself to be a reasonable person. I know everything is not just black and white. There's gray there. And come let us reason together and just hear me out. Hear it out differently from somebody not screaming down your throat or this and that. And understanding a little bit more of everything, has a little bit more wisdom. If you would have asked me that when I was 25, 30, I was, fight the power. So that's not the one you want to talk to.
Me too.
Yeah. So it's a different, a different scene and thing, but it's just have the conversation. And if you do have the conversation and it resonates, share it, because it's not going to change as much from me talking to that person. It's going to change from that person going into their churches, going into their homes, going into their communities, and then talking and getting that spread around. If that happens, we would be in a much better place. So,
Well,
as I
man, we
say,
covered
each
a
one
lot
of
of
us do.
ground, and we still got a lot of ground to cover, and we'll have to do this again, and maybe
Yes,
even
sir.
after that. We haven't even talked about. Man, there's a lot to talk about. I'm not even gonna start because it'll just keep rolling. But I got some more Bedford folk coming on.
Good, good.
It's gonna be fun, man. You were the first guy that I went out to, and because you're
I
my guy.
can't wait to see the rest.
So I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your friendship all these years, your grace, even in this conversation. I don't know what I'm talking about, and you extended grace to me to listen to the words that I might say, and and hopefully we can learn from one another, and that extends beyond just this call. So I love you as a brother, always have. Um, I'm just thankful that you were on tonight, and we will do this again very soon. I promise.
Please do. I had this circle, man. I was waiting for this day.
Good.
I was waiting for this day.
Good.
It's,
Well,
it's, it's good to see your face and talk to you and everything, sir. Very much
yeah. Well,
so.
let's do it again soon. We'll, in the meantime, keep in touch on social media as always. But appreciate you. I know this audience is going to appreciate you, and we'll do this again soon and pick up where we left off, because the conversation is not over, and I don't want to run it off, because honestly, we could talk all night. I also don't want to get us to get cut off on this recording.
Right.
So the conversation is not over, and it won't be over until we find better days. And so let's pick up this conversation again soon, man.
Absolutely, sir.
All right, brother. Love you. Talk to you.
Take care.
Bye.